How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the movie Castle, and today we're going to be taking a look at Tales from the Darkside. This is Season 1, Episode 12, and this one's entitled All a Clone by the Telephone. This is from January 20th, 1985, and is directed by Frank De Palma. Frank De Palma, for those of you guys who have been keeping up with the series, he's the guy that directed Episode 2, The New Man. So yeah, someone who's been in the series before. This episode stars Harry Anderson. Harry Anderson, you may remember him for Stephen King's It, the original miniseries adaptation. He was in that. Also, this is written by, the teleplay is by Haskell Barkin. Haskell Barkin actually wrote the last episode of this show as well, so we got 2 Haskell Barkin episodes back to back. But also what's interesting with this is he's the sole writing credit. You know, normally it's story by and then teleplay by, but he's the only credited writer here, so cool to see him get his whole own story. And this is about a man that, you know, gets in a feud with the little voice living inside of his answering machine. Overall, a pretty fun concept. The little voice in his answering machine kind of becomes its own AI, and it goes through the phone lines and can actually talk to all the other recordings, you know, the little recording in an elevator, or a movie service, or something like that. So it's sort of kind of, you know, like Tron or something. You don't ever get to see the world, but it's sort of all the recordings are becoming sentient, and they're all talking to each other, and that's a really cool concept. And it starts to get in this feud with this guy, and it kind of fits in that whole concept, you know, the horror movie subgenre of guy gets in a feud with something seemingly innocuous. So a pretty fun opening there. And yeah, it's an interesting concept, but also it's one of the Tales from the Darkside episodes that's practically begging for a remake, you know? Just think, AI inside your answering machine, update that to AI inside of your computer, and then traveling the phone lines, change that to traveling the internet. You could really do a lot with this concept in the modern era, you know? It could leave random funny comments on the internet. It could mess with you while you're trying to work from home. It could impersonate you in a video call. There's lots of things that you could do with this concept, and there's so much room for it nowadays. It could even become its own movie, you know? So I do like it was really ahead of its time. And while nowadays we know that memory stored on tape is not that much, and it's odd to think that an AI could originate in so little memory. But that being said, you know, it is something we think about nowadays. Naturally occurring AI bred out of the internet world. I mean, there's been lots of stories about things like this nowadays, but it's also a really funny story. Getting to see this guy getting pushed to his limits by his answering machine. It's funny, it's different, and also this is the show's 3rd humor episode in a row, and it's been 3 different types of humor. When I first said, okay, we're getting into the humor section, I said I hope we get a wide array of humor, and we have. You know, the first humor episode, A Case of the Stubborns, was basically some guy in a wacky zombie suit going, oh, I'm not dead, what are you talking about? I wasn't the biggest fan of that. But then you got Gin No Chaser, and it was snappy, quick-witted insult humor, and now it's a guy getting at war with something seemingly innocuous and getting pushed to his extremes. You know, 3 different types of humor, even though 2 of them are written by the same writer. So I find that pretty interesting, and overall, I really do like this episode. Ahead of its time, funny in a different way, and also has a Stephen King feel. Haskell Barkin's the only credited writer, but boy, does this feel like Stephen King, you know. The main character is a writer. Big Stephen King trope, about half of his stuff is about writers. But then it's one of those wouldn't it be funny if stories. A lot of Stephen King stories are wouldn't it be funny if this or this happened, and this is another one of those. Also, it really feels like his short story Trucks, which would become Maximum Overdrive, where all the different electronic devices get their own thing and they start to be at war with humans, you know? And then there's other Stephen King tech horror like Cell, and you can see a little bit of the similarities here. But this could almost be a prequel to Maximum Overdrive, you know, which I do think is kind of a funny idea, you know? So yeah, a lot going on here. I love the Stephen King feel, even if it's not actually Stephen King, you know? Tales from the Darkside is essentially Creepshow the series before there was a Creepshow the series, and I really do like this episode. It was pretty fun and really different. Without further ado, let's go ahead and talk a bit about the plot. I'm not going to be doing any major spoilers, but I do want to analyze the episode. I'll just be avoiding the end bits. Anyway, we open up with this guy. It's a writer, and he's talking to his agent, and the agent says, look, you're not having much luck. Hollywood is a really hard bubble to get into, and he can't seem to crack it. And he doesn't really have too many career prospects. But towards the end of the conversation, the agent happens to mention, oh, hey, I love your funny answering machine. And he goes, funny answering machine? What are you talking about? He goes home and he listens to his recording. It's all standard until he gets to the end, and then he hears a slide whistle, and he's like, what's that about? I didn't put that there. And then he listens to his messages. He's got a message from his girlfriend, and the girlfriend says, why did you put that in your answering machine? I called you just wanting to talk, and you insulted my mother in your answering machine message. And she's ticked. So he unplugs the answering machine and goes to try to make it up to her. I don't know how that got there. I swear I didn't do it. I don't know what's going on. But then later in the middle of the night, the answering machine yells at him, wakes him up and says, plug me back into the network. He plugs it in, and the answering machine starts talking to, I guess it's kind of like movie phone. It's a movie service. It starts talking to an automated movie service, a recording, and starts kind of flirting with it. So his AI is talking to another AI, and they're going through the phone lines. It talks about how the phone line world is kind of an alternate dimension. So yeah, kind of Tron-esque, even though we don't actually get to see it. And all the little recordings are starting to come to life, and they're starting to travel through the phone lines, and they're starting to talk to each other. A really interesting, naturally occurring AI story. I really did like that. It was an interesting way to tell the story, and I thought that was pretty fun. Now, the AI tries to make it up to him. It's like, okay, your girlfriend's mad at me. I'll do something nice for you. And that's where the AI calls his answering machine, from his answering machine to his girlfriend's. And on the girlfriend's answering machine, tries to propose to her. Leaves a big heartfelt proposal and tries to get her to marry him, thinking that that's what this guy wants and thinking he'll be happy and thrilled. But when she comes over all happy and going, oh boy, we're getting married, he doesn't play into it for a second. He doesn't try to hide it. He just goes, that was not me, that was my answering machine, I don't like that he did this, and he goes to unplug it. Well, the answering machine goes, hey look, I was trying to help you, please don't unplug me. Unplugging me is like disconnecting me from the whole world. It's a cruel punishment for me. And he goes, no, I'm going to do it anyway. And then the answering machine goes, if you do it, I have friends. So yeah, after he unplugs it, he starts to get harassed by all these other recordings. You know, he'll get a phone call, and it'll be some weird weather service. He'll get a phone call, and it'll be like the help menu from an elevator, you know. So all these different random recordings calling him, harassing him, driving him to the point of insanity. Robo-dialing before robo-dialing was a thing. And it's really cool to see him be at war with something you wouldn't think you would be at war with. And it's a fun, crazy, wacky concept that really could work out much better in today's situations, you know? It almost feels like someone wrote this script in the future, accidentally traveled back in time, and had to downgrade all the tech to make it work for TV in the 80s. Overall, pretty fun, you know? And it does build to a really cool climax, you know? Really ahead of its time, interesting humor, different humor than we got on the show before, and has a good Stephen King-esque feel to it. I really did like this episode. I thought it was a pretty nice surprise. I was wondering what it'd be about. It's always cool to see Darkside talk about technology. Obviously, Mookie and Pookie was also about AI. And then you got things like in the odds, they talk about a pocket calculator being new tech, So, yeah, pretty cool to see Darkside talk about the technology from its day, and then looking back on it, 40 almost, about 40 years later, so it's kind of interesting. But anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my Tales from the Darkside playlist, where I've already reviewed the first 11 episodes of the series. Also, this is episode 12 of 24, so we're halfway through the first season, and I will get to the rest of those really soon. In this playlist, I also have the Christmas episodes and the Joe Hill comic based on his pitch for the CW that didn't get picked up. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.